Hello, hello, hello. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. I'm a minute or two late. I'm sorry. Uh, I'm really trying to find something I wanted to share with you concerning tonight's topic. I have a copy of Jonathan Hollerman's book, and actually, it's a 8.5 by 11 size book, so it's fairly large. But it's his presentation to Congress, and it's called. You can get it on Amazon for like $30, or you can get it for free. I think it's just do a web search for Grid Down, Death of a Nation is the name of the book, and the guy's name is Jonathan Hollerman. But anyhow, in it, he presented to Congress that tonight's subject is extremely important because he predicts that in a grid down situation, within 1 year, 90% of the population of the United States will be gone. So I wanted to show you that. You can get it for free online. I don't know where. I didn't do that research. I was trying to show you my book. Can't find it. I paid for the $30 version, but you can get that on Amazon if you're really, really concerned about it. Believe me, you're going to do an awful lot of reading to come down with the conclusion that if there is a grid down situation, 90% of the population dies within 1 year. So welcome. Good news, huh? Tonight we're talking about grid down. So basically, this is Ted Riley's book, Prepare Your Home for Almost Any Situation. For a sudden grid down situation. There we go. So he's talking about all the different things we can do to prepare for when the grid does go down. My personal opinion, take it for what it's worth. My personal opinion is I think that is the single greatest threat that our country faces, whether it be EMP or whether it be an attack on our grid system itself, or whether it be hacking, electronic, computerized hacking, that somehow or other our grid will go down, and that's going to be the greatest single thing. Just think about it. I mean, nobody knows who did it for sure, and it keeps all of the infrastructure in place. You don't destroy roads, bridges. You don't contaminate any crops. All of the resources that we have available are still available. So I think that's going to be probably, if I were an opponent to the United States, that's what I would do. I would do an EMP, which is an electromagnetic pulse. It's where they take a satellite overhead and detonate it at a high altitude. And we're talking way above our normal commercial flight paths. This is in geosynchronous. The Koreans have two in geosynchronous orbit with the U.S. We suspect they might be EMPs. But if they were to blow that, about 80% of the U.S. grid would go down instantaneously. Let's see who all's here. Let me move my Sprite here real quick, and then we can. I don't do any caffeine after 6 o'clock. It used to be when I was on active duty and I had nighttime duty, I could fall asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning with a cup of coffee in my hand. Oh, by the way, this is from Nutrient Survival, fantastic survival food, freeze dried. So if you're interested in that, I strongly recommend you see them. I tell people don't use my 10% coupon code until you've exceeded $350 worth of purchases. And the reason is because if you're buying less than $350 but more than $100, you get a $35 sample pack for making that purchase. So if you're going to get a $35 sample pack for buying $100, that's a lot better deal than using my 10% code that you'll see down below and getting 10% off of $100. So you're going to get $10 off of $100, whereas they will give you $35 right off the bat. So do the math, find out what's best for you. Make sure you do what gets you the most for your dollar, okay? Let's take a look who's all here. Suburban Prepper, good evening. Good to see you. Scott Humphrey. Then we have Scott Hummer. What did I say? Humphrey. Scott Hummer. I'm sorry. Shenanigans. Creative Redundancy. Little Known Prepper. It's saying 14. Utah Mike. Great. Good to see you, my friend. Sumi. Good evening. And Butch Graves, there's another great person. Thank you, sir. Tammy Harder, Cats and Prepping. Little Lone Pepper says that she has heard that attacks on 3 major substations would take out the power for the rest of the country. Semi-true. That you've got it kind of right. The number, and I remember I used to be in the industry. I was an HR director for an electric co-op. So we had reports on attacks on our substations like you would not believe. The number that we work with inside the industry is 7. So if 7 substations get taken out anywhere in the U.S., that'll cause an overload to the extent that it could cause catastrophic failure. Now that I say that, remember we had the great blackout up in the Northeast that involved both New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, the Pacific Northeast, Canada, that whole area. That's more than 7 substations, and it did not affect drastically the rest of the country. So I think that's all theory. It would have to be catastrophic loss, but yeah, the theory we work with is 7 would be catastrophic loss. Take a look at the wildfires in California, the wildfires that are happening now in South Carolina, the wildfires that are happening here in Central Texas. Yes, I'm sure that there have been more than 7 substations affected. Just my personal opinion. But, they have the ability to reroute those when they know that it's going to happen and everything. So here in Texas, it's not far from me. It's only about 12 miles from here. As a matter of fact, I know a woman who applied for the job as the CEO of it, but it's called ERCOT, the Energy Reliability Council of Texas, ERCOT. And so you can go there, and they're the ones who own all the switches and direct all the power from all the power suppliers. So the transmission poles to the distribution poles and all that kinds of stuff. But yeah, basically you're right. Let me see. That looks like that's it. Okay, let's get into his. Let me tell you, what a pleasure to read. Oh my gosh. Straight, simple, easy to read. Very, very. I was preparing for tonight, and I found out just because I was reading and taking notes that I was into chapter 3, and I was way beyond where I needed to prepare. So that's how easy it is to read and how engrossing it is. Fantastic book. There's a link for it down below. I do get 2% if you buy it through my Amazon link. Just be aware of that. So potential causes of prolonged grid failure. We pretty much covered that in EMP, CME. Now CME is coronal mass ejection. So every morning when I get up, I turn on www.solarobserver.com. So the 2 things other than my religious things that I do are solarobserver.com. It used to be called Suspicious Observer. And then the other one I do is windy.com. Now, windy.com doesn't have anything to do with solar CMEs, but windy.com tells me the prevailing overhead wind, the primary wind direction and speed. And that way I can make it, I know which areas to be concerned about if there is a nuclear explosion. So if, for example, the wind is coming southeast and northwest and San Antonio gets hit, I'm not going to worry about it that much because their fallout's going to fall northwest of them rather than up here where we're kind of northeast. Now, there have been several terrorist attacks on our grids as well. You've read about a couple of them in the news where people will take like 30-06s and shoot at the transformers, and they're filled with mineral oil. Mineral oil is not combustive, so they aren't going to do anything. But they've tried shooting at them. They've tried blowing them up. One guy tried driving through the security fence to try to take it out. There have been all kinds of things. I haven't seen any drone attacks on them here in the U.S. Now, drone attacks on power relay stations in the European war are very, very frequent. So, but I don't think it'll take long before that hits here. Earthquakes, natural disasters that disrupt transmission lines, power stations, distribution lines. We had winds yesterday here in excess of 65 miles an hour. Matter of fact, it blew one of the eaves off of this corner of the house last night. Driving around the neighborhood, there's a lot of shingles that are gone. I did notice that it kind of warped one of my solar panels. The wind just caught it at the right corner. I'm not going to worry about it that much, but really bad winds. And as a result of that, somewhere here in our area, I believe what happened, having been in the industry, is a tree was probably uprooted or fell onto a line, a distribution line. So they had to go out and replace the distribution line. We lost power immediately. Poof, it's gone. I was having a conversation on a fantastic Facebook page called, let me see if I can find it here, Prepping for Long-Term Survival on Facebook. Prepping for Long-Term Survival. It's a great channel, growing. It only has 275 members right now, but I mean, it's a lot of great discussions. And so I was having a discussion on it last night when the tree hit the power pole. It was during the hours of daylight, so I could go immediately to my Enlighten, which shows me my solar power production. I was still in the green. I was producing more solar with my panels than I was anything else. And so I knew I was living off of solar, not even my batteries. It was direct sunlight solar. Whereas the rest of the neighborhood, it's right at that point where you're starting to get reduced productivity of solar. And I looked around and nothing else was happening anywhere in the neighborhood. So I knew and the energy report told me that we had a downage. And so I was probably the only family around here for 2 or 3 hours with power, whereas they didn't have any. So we'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to talk about what do you do to prepare yourself for a grid down situation. One of our subscribers and I, excuse me, let me get rid of my mic real quick before I do this. I'm still having problems. So my wife asked me, did you call the doctor today to find out the results of that test? I said, no. She said, do it tomorrow. I said, yes, ma'am. So I've got business cards so I can call them tomorrow and say, hey, remember that test you did on me about a week and a half ago? What's the results? So anyhow, get an alternative for them, a backup. There are some people who have natural gas Generacts, and that's running off the natural gas line that runs into your home, so that they detect the power outage and they automatically kick on. I didn't even have to relog on to any of my channels. That's how quickly the solar panel power took over from the grid power once it detected an outage. Earthquakes, other natural disasters are going to ruin the distribution lines, transmission lines, all that kinds of stuff. Terrorist attacks, cyber attacks. Our grid is a number one target. Let's just admit that. So what would happen if the grid went down? Well, water, food, money. Think of those three things. So our water purification and distribution industry is all electrically fed, all those pumps and everything else. So they're going to get that power up to the top of either a standpipe or a tower that you have. And then what happens is it's low pressure taking it up to the top. Then you get all of that water inside that tower, and the gravitational pushing down on that causes greater pressure, and then that comes down a small pipe to distribution to all the homes. So once that goes dry, there's no more water, and without electricity, you aren't resupplying the water up into the tower or the standpipe. Same thing with food supplies. You can't keep them cold. They aren't going to do you any good. So food distribution really goes to heck. They can't sell it because they don't have any ATMs, no cash, no money. I mean, very few people have cash anymore. I think that cash transactions in our economy are less than 3%, from what I understand. And so if you take a look at our M2 money supply, there's probably less than 5% of our total money that exists in the United States is actually printed or coined. The rest of it's all electronic transactions. So once those electronic transactions go away, there's no more commerce. Let me see. In a large-scale grid down situation, the gas supply would run out. Cell phone service would run out. So he's got a whole list of different things that you're going to do without because the power ran out. You can't get gas because all those pumps to fill up your truck or your car run on electricity. So there's a lot of things. Start looking at all the things you use on a day-to-day basis. They're gone, just pure gone. Remembering your survival priorities. So in his other book, he says he doesn't want to rehash old ground, get the other book, but a grid down situation would leave us without the things we take for granted for a longer period of time than a simple power outage. And then the next, so that's kind of the end of chapter 1. And in chapter 2, he talks about the powers out. What are the intermediate to short-term, immediate short-term solutions? And I told you mine. Mine is that I have solar, whole house solar. So the minute that anything happens, it kicks in. Now, let me tell you the ups and downs of this because I don't want you to think that I'm a 100% solar guy. I am not. I found out during Ice-Mageddon of 2021, Ice-Mageddon 2023, if your solar panels are covered with a ½ inch of ice from an ice storm and it's overcast skies, you aren't going to produce anything. So you're going to be strictly on your battery power. What saved us and what made us different from everybody else in the neighborhood was we were getting 4 hours of power a day. So they would come through on a rotation, and they sent us 4 hours of power. I think it was from midnight until 4 a.m. is when we got our power. Well, that was just enough during those 4 hours to restore my battery banks. So we had the batteries from them, so we could run heater and everything else from the coldest part of the day, from midnight to 4 a.m. and get the house nice and warm. Plus, it would recharge our batteries so that we would have those available for a little. Those batteries probably lasted us another. We could have probably lasted 2 or 3 days on the batteries, but they constantly kept getting recharged, and so our neighbors didn't have that. Think of the repercussions if you have medical devices, COPD, oxygen. You have to keep your medicine refrigerated. Think of all the repercussions of that if you have a grid down situation. It would be a lot worse in some senses in the summer, especially for food, because you're going to have that outside temperature competing with the coldness that you want to have inside your freezer and refrigerator. So you'd only open those during the coldest part of the day so you don't lose too much of the coldness. Other things that he recommends that you do is have flashlights and headlamps. I would include candles in that group. Now, if you have little children, candles and lanterns, anything with a flame, until you get them accustomed to it and you're watching them. And I am scared to death of a neighborhood fire. And I think the number of people who don't know how to cook outdoors, the number of people who don't know how to use indoor candles and flames for lighting, heating, etc., it's going to become more and more dangerous. So I probably would not use candles and lanterns if I have young children until I get them trained in it. Flashlights and headlamps, absolutely. So the question then becomes one of what happens once you've used up the batteries. So you can get smaller solar battery packs and throw those out in the backyard, charge up your AA or AAA batteries, and then keep recycling those AA and AAA batteries on a regular basis. He recommends the Phoenix PD36R as far as a flashlight and the Olight Warrior Mini 2 EDC. I have the Warrior Mini 2 EDC. It's actually on my bug out bag. Fantastic flashlight. Absolutely love it. I used to be a Nebo distributor. So when I had my store, I sold Nebo flashlights, Nebo. Absolutely love them. Great products. I opened 2, I think they were called inspectors. And both of them were bad. I mean, the on-off switch would not work at all. So I contacted Nebo and said, hey, I would like to trade these in. And just, because I opened up the boxes and boom, they were bad. And they said, well, give us the sales receipt. Right. So that was purchased at my store some time ago. So I didn't have the purchase receipts. $90 flashlights. if you aren't going to stand by your products, then I'm not going to buy them. So I don't buy Nebo anymore. I've switched over to Olight. I think Olight's a little bit overpriced. I would buy them whenever you see a sale going on. But just to go to Amazon or somewhere like that and buy an Olight, I probably would not do that. Let me catch up here with the... Yeah, Tammy, we're about ready to get into the most beautiful part of Texas, as far as the weather and everything, with the bluebonnet season coming up. So that's one of my favorite parts. And Chapel Hill, which is halfway between Austin and Houston on 290, in my opinion, is the most beautiful stretch of bluebonnets in Texas. Oh, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who aren't Texans, today was the last day or tonight would be the last night that Davy Crockett played his fiddle at the Alamo back in 1836. The end of the siege happens at daybreak tomorrow. So that famous last scene that everybody makes in the movies, that happens at daybreak tomorrow morning, March 6th, 1836. And that was the last day of the siege of the Alamo. That siege probably lasted about 20, 25 minutes. So everything up until now, we've been here 14 days. And so tomorrow's the last day of the siege and the final assault. And Davy Crockett loses his fiddle. He recommends the Black Diamond Revolt 350. Have not seen that. I would recommend a couple things as far as flashlights and headlamps and stuff like that. I am getting to the point where I prefer a headlamp. And so you're going to wear it up here. And that's going to, your hands are off. You don't need anything to look for things. I had a Nebo when I was looking in my library, trying to go through all the books, looking for Jonathan Hollerman's book. And, but it has that side light, a bar side light. You have to turn it. Man, I tell you what, every once in a while, I just accidentally turn it and get it in my face and my eyes. I'm blind for a couple minutes. I don't like those sidebar flashlights. I want it to come out the end, or I want something like, I have a couple here. They look like canisters with holding handles, and you lift it up, and then it's got a 360-degree beam where it illuminates the entire room. I like those. I like headlamps, and I like handheld flashlights. So, I would say stock up on those. I would say get as many of the headlamps as you can. Now, if you're in a tactical situation and there's bad guys, you don't want to have a headlamp because they're going to shoot for the light. Okay. So, that's where you might want to have something either mounted on your thing or handheld. But you definitely don't want to put it up here. Food and water. He says recommends 72-hour duration that you need food and water, at least 1 gallon a day for 3 full days. I'm going to tell you 3 gallons a day per person per day. He's just talking about what you need to do to survive. But if you're using freeze-dried or dehydrated foods, you need water to rehydrate those. You're going to need water for sanitation. So I'm going to recommend 3 gallons per person per day, not the normal 1 gallon per person per day. Make sure you have plenty of food. Make sure you have a way to cook the food. I think that's quite often overlooked. So take a look at indoor compatible stoves that you can use inside the house. There's a 1-burner butane stove available on Amazon. I don't have a link for it. I haven't added that to my shop yet. Maybe I do. Let me check. 1-burner stove. Come on, Word. Butane 1-burner stove. Alcohol stove would be fantastic. Yes, I do. I do have it. I'll put it in the show notes. Butane Camp indoor single burner stove, Amazon. I think it's going to be about $30, and you can get the 3 packs. You've seen those quite frequently on my haul videos. And so, the 1-pound cans of butane, put those in. That's safe to use inside. Whenever you do that, please do me a favor, have 2 other things available. So here is my carbon monoxide detector. So make sure you have a carbon monoxide detector. Also, make sure you have a fire extinguisher whenever you have anything that you're burning on the inside of the house. So that 1-burner butane stove is fantastic. You can also get the Sterno camp stove, And instead of using sterno, you can go to Sam's Club as well, and they have something called Safe Heat. And those are the ones they use to keep the food warm in the warming trays in the store. Not hot enough to boil water, but it is hot enough to warm up a can of soup or to warm a cup of coffee. Okay, so that's another good alternative. A third alternative is to make yourself an alcohol stove or buy an alcohol stove, and that purely burns. I mean, that's great stuff, but it's also a very, very hot thing to use. So, be careful with that, but make sure you have a way to cook your food or to warm up. I would say make sure you have a way to cook your coffee. Okay, first aid and medication, make sure you have plenty of it. Alternative lighting, Streamlight Super Siege, he recommends, and it will last for 36 hours, the lowest setting, and it has red LEDs for night vision. Then there are short-term power outage devices. I have a Jackery 1000. I would love to try some of the others. Maybe one of these days I'll buy another one. But the Jackery 1000, because we had it inside the house, actually in the garage, during the ice storm, once the ice storm was over, although we had gray skies, so it typically takes about 4 hours to charge it with my solar panels that I also keep inside the house. I took it outside in the middle of Snowmageddon, Ice-mageddon, and it took it about 12 every minute we had of daylight, and it was only about 90% charged. That shows you how little we had as far as light, but that was able to be an emergency backup as well, so we could use that. I would say that if you have whole house solar power like we do, plug in all your battery chargers, make sure everything's charged. And then I plugged in all of I have 10 Retevis RT12s, which is a family radio service radio, so it's good just for the neighborhood. And so what I would do is I had 5 chargers here in the house. I have 10, but I had 5 plugged in. I would keep 5 radios charging while I gave 5 out to other friends around the neighborhood in case they needed something. And so we were able to keep in communication that way. And then the next day they'd bring their radios back that needed to be charged, and I'd give them a fresh one I had charged off of our battery system. So, you can do that as well. We've already talked about cooking, bathroom help. That's a tough one. I have these gross visions of the Superdome down in New Orleans after the Hurricane Katrina, and all the fecal matter that was coming out of the restrooms. It was overflowed, and then they had backups of the sewage system. So first, recognize where you are vis-a-vis the sewage system. Are you downhill from other people on the sewage system? So if that stuff goes downhill, right, and it encounters a clog somewhere, then it's going to start backing up. So if there's an opportunity for your next door neighbor's stuff to come down, get clogged, and then come into your place, make sure you have precautions for that. There are some sewer devices. I have heard of them. And I was talking to a plumber friend of mine that I have breakfast with every Tuesday. But there are one-way sewer traps you can get for outdoors where your sewer system meets the main line. And they are one-way traps so that basically your sewage goes out, but nobody else's sewage comes in. So I would say make sure you're aware of those. If possible, get those if you're downhill from somebody else. We're up on top of the hill here, so I'm not that concerned about it. But make sure you have a way of disposing of that. You're not going to be able to flush your toilets, so make sure you have trash cans with scented trash bag liners, trash can liners, and you're going to put your toilet paper, you use toilet paper in those. The scented ones, and kind of seal it off. If you can get some sort of a bucket where you can control the odor, and maybe even some cat litter to control the odor, that's going to be fantastic. But if you keep on trying to flush, and you can flush, I will tell you a secret. I'll tell you how you can flush. If you keep extra water, more than 1 gallon per person per day, then every time you flush, refill the tank back in the back. Because what happens is you've got a trap. It's a neck in your toilet before it goes down into the sewage system. So that it's a gas trap, basically. So what happens is you have to push that water up over that hump that becomes normally gas, and then you've got water levels on either side. That's what keeps that sewer gas from coming back into your house. Okay. So when you flush, what you're doing is you're causing more water pressure to go through, push that sewer gas down, refill, establish that water line so that nothing else comes back up. If you can keep pumping water into the back of that tank, every time you pump it up, you can flush. But just consider that's using an awful lot of water. Warm weather power outage tips: staying warm, cool, and entertained. We've lost these secrets from back in the early 1800s, mid 1800s. Actually, I lived off of a swamp cooler until I think the first house I lived in that had central air was probably in 1980 in San Angelo, Texas. But up until that point, I'd always had swamp coolers, which is basically an evaporative air cooler. And so you're going to have water. There's water in the bottom of this tank, and you've got hay pads on all four sides. Water goes up, goes through those hay pads. Then the fan sucks air in and hydrates it as it comes in, and then distributes that throughout the house. Be careful, don't have any paperwork directly underneath one of the outlets because it is extremely humid, and things that are susceptible to being saturated with water will be saturated with water. But we've lost that. And so before that, we just had windows that opened with screens, cross ventilation, so all those different things. I found at the dollar store about 2 or 3 years ago, they had and they did these, they were $1 each, but they were the cheapo plastic Chinese, Japanese hand fans. I bought about 20 of them, so I've got plenty of hand fans I can pass out to people in the event of a power outage during the heat. What are some of the other things that you can do to other than cross ventilation and stuff? We have one room in our house, so we'll have the whole house solar. We have one bedroom where we have a Black & Decker stand-up combination air conditioner. It's not evaporative; it's condenser air conditioner and heater. So we're going to declare that our cool room. We probably won't keep it very cold. Probably about 10 to 12 degrees cooler than the rest of the house, but it will be cooler than the rest of the house, so that if somebody's ill and we need to chill them down a little bit, we can put them in there. Let me see. You can also, it recommends, remember I told you about the evaporative air conditioners and the air going through the hay pads? You can kind of recreate that effect by opening a window and then hanging a damp towel across that window. So what you're doing now is, as the air comes through, if you've got that cross ventilation, it's going to go through that window, that damp towel. It's going to pick up that moisture and it's going to hydrate it, and that's going to come in and cool your house as well. Okay, let me check chat once more here. Oh, no. Sorry to hear that. Wow, Scott says they had a tornado in EF1 in DFW yesterday. I believe it. We had 65-mile-an-hour winds here, about 2 hours south of you. KP Heathen, good evening. Welcome. Shenanigans. I hope I do too. I got to call the doctor tomorrow and say, hey, what did the test show? So today I went in. I saw my pain management doctor at 7:30 this morning. They're concerned because I have my pain pills ran out in November, and they were concerned that I hadn't ordered any refills. I said, well, if you'll remember, you told me to take 4, and I found that 3 was sufficient. I don't want to overdo it. That stuff really scares me, like you would not believe. So I've been doing it on 3. I said, actually, what I'm doing is the middle of the day. Sometimes I'm not here and I forget to take it, and I don't take it with me or anything. So I've been doing, even though you prescribed 4, I've only been doing 2. And she said, well, we're less concerned about that than we would be if you were overusing it. However, you need to take it as prescribed. So I'm supposed to take 3 a day. Here we go. I still have 2. I didn't take my noontime one today. So I'm going to take both of these, and maybe that'll help me sleep a little bit better. Because originally I was supposed to take 1 in the morning, 1 at noon, 1 in midday, and 2 at night. So I figure if I forget my midday right now and I'm on 3, then if I do 1 and 2, that should be okay. Help me sleep. Cold weather, create a microcosm. So create one room you're going to keep warm. Remember the old days, the canopy tents. That was a micro environment inside of a room. So those curtains that they had on the tents, on the canopies for the beds, basically kept your exhaust, your exhalations that are 98.6. It kept that confined inside that microcosm, and then that kept a nice warm temperature for you. So you can do the same thing. You can go into your living room and put up a small tent, and you can stay inside there, and that's going to create that same effect. So it's going to keep you warm in there. Designate one room as your warm room. One of the things that we've just recently done here is I got some river rock that are very dry, by the way. You don't want to warm up wet river rock. And 2 galvanized steel 5-gallon buckets. Okay. So what we're going to do is take the river rock and we're going to put it on the grill outside with charcoal, warm up the river rock. And this is what the Native Americans did. They did it slightly different, but I'll tell you how they did that. Then we take that very warm river rock, put it in the 5-gallon galvanized bucket. That becomes our radiant heat. Okay. So we're going to bring it in and set it on the open door for the oven. And that way we've got those hot rocks basically warming up the kitchen area. So while those rocks are warming up the kitchen area, my second batch of rocks are out on the grill being warmed. And so we've got that continuous cycle of having those rocks coming into the house and warming the house while the others are being warmed. So the way the Native Americans did that was they would line their fire pits with rocks. And then they had small holes that they dug in the earth. Then when they were getting ready to go to bed, they would put those warm rocks in that hole, cover it with soil, and then with some other items, grass and things like that, to make it kind of like a sleeping platform. And then they would sleep on top of that. So that kept the cold earth from sapping all of their energy from them. So that's another idea that you might want to consider. I really like a company, and I'm going to forget their name now, but they sell 1 and 3 candle burners. What's the name of the company? Let me go here to where's my Amazon account? There it is. So past orders. Candles. Echo, no. That doesn't look like past orders. Orders? Oh, I hit the wrong one. There's giving me all kinds of candles. I know I don't order that many candles from Amazon. UCO, UCO. So UCO has 2 different candelabras. One of them has you burn 3 candles at the same time, and it'll basically warm up a pot. It has a stovetop over top of it, and it'll warm up a pot of soup or a can of soup, or it'll warm up your hot chocolate, warm up your coffee. It won't boil it, but it will get it warm, and that's a fantastic item to have. Now, they come both with paraffin candle. Well, they have 3 different candles. They have paraffin candles, they have citronella candles, and they have beeswax candles. So you can get any one of those 3 to keep a candle supply for your UCO candelier. I keep a single burner Uco candle in its lantern, if you want to call it that. That I keep that next to my bed, so that's always there for an emergency, along with the lighter. And then we have 2 of the Uco candeliers that have 3 candles inside of it, and those we'll use in another area for primarily for a lot more light. But I would strongly recommend those. Once again, be careful if you have children or animals. If you have cats, they can push them off and start a fire. If you have dogs, they can knock them over and start a fire. So just make sure that you are very, very conscious of the dangers of having those in your home. So another thing is staying active. The more active you are, the warmer you're going to be. I should probably do an invite and have Sumi, one of our channel subscribers here, talk about how to keep warm. I think right now it's just right around, give or take 5-10 degrees, 0 degrees Celsius where she is, which is below 32 degrees for sure for our candles, for our temperatures. But she could probably give you all kinds of tips on how to keep warm. Those of you who live in Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Ohio, Nebraska, Iowa. I mean, you guys get some dogged weather there as far as cold. I don't know about Alaska. I'm fairly certain. I don't have any followers, I don't think, from Alaska, but I would imagine that those are brutal. Butch Graves says that he thinks that one of the major threats to our grid is overregulation by the EPA. Absolutely. That's what happened in California in a lot of their fires, is the fact that they're not allowed to clear the undergrowth. And it's not the EPA, it's the California EPA. But then when you don't clear the undergrowth and you got these high voltage wires that come in contact with undergrowth, then that causes a fire. And so, yeah, that's not good. We need to keep that area cleared so that when a line falls, it doesn't start a fire. This 3-liter bottle of Sprite is 3 years old and still fuzzy. That's fizzy. So that's kind of Scott says yes, that the city water system is based off electricity. No water, no electricity, no water. And it's good that you're making those arrangements ahead of time. Now is the time to make those arrangements. Okay. Higgy Homestead, good evening. Welcome. Good to see you. Let me see. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And we did ours in phases. So, there's nothing wrong with doing it in phases. Do what you can when you can. And money is not something that grows on trees. So actually, my solar system, I'm going to say I owe 75% of my solar system to my mother's estate. We probably would not have it had we not had the inheritance. So yes, creative redundancy. Good point. There are solar charged lights, like sidewalk lights and things like that, that you can get at most of the big box stores and most of the hardware stores. And so you can get those, put them out during the daytime, let the sun charge them, and then you have the lights at night. I don't know if they have ON, OFF switches, so you can control them and only turn them on when you need them or when they're automatically going to be on. So I really don't know. So I've got Cats and Prepping saying she agrees with me. Cats and candles don't mix well. Shenanigans. Wow, 2 inches of snow. No, I don't think anybody does. Oh, Suburban Prepper says that Lilting has great flashlights on Amazon. Okay. Lylting has great flashlights on Amazon. Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Yes, alcohol penny stove is a fantastic idea. Just do me a favor. I ordered extra silicone pot mats, and so to put on top of the because this is German. This is German. We bought it in Germany, so you can see there. That's the they call it an Eckbankgruppe. So that ragweed or rag thing goes all the way around two sides, and then this is a square wooden table. The Germans call it Fichte, which is basically the same thing as oak, and kind of like oak. And but anyhow, so I don't want to have an alcohol stove burning directly on this wood table. So I bought all kinds of those mats so that I can have hot things on this table and not start a fire. So make sure you keep that in consideration. Another thing is when you're using any kind of indoor cooking and or a candle, make sure you look up, how much clearance do you have from the top of that flame to where it's going to, is it going to have time to cool before it gets to something combustible? So make sure you practice good fire safety when you have any open flames inside your home. Great idea, Utah Mike. Great idea. Sumi, take care. Have a nice evening. Gil, good evening. Good to see you, my friend. I was just watching one of your shows here a little while ago. Utah Mike, that is a great idea. Did you get that on Amazon? If so, could you do me a favor? Could you share that link where you have that from? Because I think that would be something that everybody should have. Somebody else's fecal matter coming over into my property is something that scares the living daylights out of me. So if you have a link on that, that would be great. And if not, I'll do some research before our next class, and I'll put it up there for people. Yeah, Gil, I think Gil is semi quasi pseudo, almost kind of sort of off grid. So he's got a whole bunch of different things that he has going there. And one of my friends, Tool Man Tim out of Canada, he turned me on to something called Pri-G and Pri-D. And if you have some gas or some diesel you stored for a while, it will basically rejuvenate it, he says. I haven't tried it yet, but he says that. You can also add it ahead of time to the fuel, and it becomes kind of like Stabil, Stabil, which is the fuel preservative for gasoline. So, those are some things you might want to consider as well, should you have a gas-powered heating system. We also have a Mr. Buddy system. But I tell you, one of the things that's really got me kind of, I wish I had researched and planned this out a lot better. So I've got the one burner camp stove here, and it takes the 1 pound screw-in butane canister. I've got no, it's not even 1 pound, it's half pound. I've got the Mr. Buddy heater system, and that's got I think it's 1.5, 3 pound green canister that screws into it. Then I've got my Vesta Instafire and my Vesta oven, and both of those take the safe heat. And somebody was asking me if I wanted it. Did I think it would be worth it to buy? I forget the name of it now, but I'm sure somebody will put it in the comments. It's a camp stove that it basically has a USB charger on it, so you can charge your cell phone while you're cooking. And I took a look at it, and that has a different fuel. And I've got way too many types of fuel. I want to get it down to as few as possible, so I'm not buying anything else that requires fuel unless it's one of the 3 or 4 types of fuel I'm already storing. I've even got white gas for my Coleman stove. And then I've got paraffin, 2 gallons of paraffin, liquid paraffin for the kerosene lanterns. I say kerosene, but you know what I mean. They can fire. You can either burn kerosene or you can burn paraffin oil, and I prefer the paraffin oil over the kerosene. But yeah. Oh, so Claude Ortega says that he bought his off of Amazon. This is the plug for the toilet, okay? And it's called the Waffle Buddy Pneumatic Hydraulic Test Plug Inflatable with Air or Water. I'm going to leave that up so everybody can go to Amazon, look that up, and just kind of bookmark that or put it to your list, your ad list. I'm going to leave it up so that I can do that at the end of the show. Okay, let me see. Thank you for sharing that, Claude. I greatly appreciate it. And welcome, by the way. Very good advice. Oh, I lost it. Very good advice. Let me go back and see if I can't find it. Where's Claude's? There we go. Very good advice, Tammy. And Tammy says, I think that was Tammy, to remember that the alcohol stove burns so intensely that you may not see the flame. So, and I want to bring this up under the heating portion. We have two of the alcohol stovetop warmers, and it's a fire. I think they call it a fire pit, and it's basically stone. It's got a little indentation on the up top with a little burner inside of it. And you fill it up with alcohol and you burn, and it's you can roast marshmallows and stuff on it. Great little heater that you can use for your home. There's no heat transfer down, so you don't have to worry about it on a wooden table. But I have two of them. Okay. And the reason I have two of them is because exactly what's being said about you cannot see the flame. And that is you don't know when it's, unless you try to burn yourself, you don't know even when it's cool enough to add more fuel in. So what I'm going to do is as one dries down, right, I'm going to set it off to the side so that it can cool down. And I've got a second one fresh with new alcohol in it that I can light and use for the heater. So while this one's running, this one's cooling. And then I just continuously rotate the two. Yeah, make everybody jealous, Gil. Oh, I did it again. Well, I'll just have to leave it up there and oh, I know what I'll do. Wait a minute. Carlos, let me go up here. Let me take yours. Okay, I'm going to take this waffle body. I can't copy paste. Okay, so I'm going to go to Amazon real quick and waffle body pneumatic plug. Got it. So I don't have to worry. Now I can. Okay, now I can accidentally click on somebody else and I will not feel guilty about it. Let me see. Oh, really? Okay. So I need to get more, be more precise on it. Now I know why she was so concerned. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Suburban Prepper. Someone's knocking at my door. Somebody's ringing the bell. Oh, yes, I've seen that where they say, and I bought one. I haven't tried it yet, but you can get a painter's tray like they use on ladders, where you have the roller, and put that and those hooks hook into the grill, so that you can then have a warming tray in front of where that hot air comes out, and use that as a warmer for food and stuff like that. Thank you for that reminder, Ficgtion. Great idea. Oh my goodness gracious shenanigans. I am so sorry for that. We pay for it here with roofs. We typically will a roof here in where I am in Texas will probably last on average 2.5, 3 years at the max. If it doesn't get damaged with the wind, it gets damaged with hail. So one or the other, we're going to have a new roof almost every 3 years. So our insurance is out the roof. What a pun, huh? Our insurance is crazy because of roof damage. And then, of course, I live in an HOA, so you're not allowed to change colors. You can't change composition or anything like that. I would love some of these newer fabricated shingle roofs that are impervious to hail and things. I would love to have one of those, but of course, we have to maintain the same style, texture, color of our roofs as possible. Hello, Alternative Homesteading, and welcome. I haven't seen that name before. We're glad that you're here with us. Snowing there, huh? I won't tell you that just a while ago it was 80 degrees here. Let me check where we are now. Right now we are, and this is at almost 9 o'clock at night. We're 56 here today. So right now. And our high today was 82. Time for the blue bonnets to come out. That is for sure. Welcome back, Gil. And good advice, Ficgtion. Thank you. BioLite. Thank you, Utah Mike. That's what I was thinking of, the one that has the electronic generator, heat generator on the side. Great. Thank you for mentioning that. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's for sure. I know some people who would love to get on a hold of some of my medications, and just no way. I'm not going to mess with that at all. Okay, looks like I'm up with Suburban Pepper, and that's the latest. And so Gil is recommending that we get the ones with the long hose and stick it way down there and get it down there, else it'll pop. Okay, so it looks like we're right at an hour. And thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed the book. We're going to do next week. We're just going to do one chapter. And I've already started reading. Gosh, this is a great book. So far, I strongly recommend it for your library. But next week, we're going to be talking about a closer look at off-grid power. So power options, how to store electricity, how to prepare off-grid property for an off-grid situation, taking action, do-it-yourself emergency solar panel battery change. We're going to be talking about several different ways of generating power for your house in case of an emergency. One of the things that I'm kind of investigating now too, back in the 60s, in 1962, when I first got into this, my next door neighbor built a cinder block fallout shelter in his backyard, and we had this hand cranked power generator, and it was basically you could turn it into a bicycle if you wanted to, but somebody had to basically hand crank or foot crank to generate electricity 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's the way we generated electricity for the air system to make sure we were getting air sucked in through the air filtration system. And it also provided 12-volt lighting for the shelter in certain areas. So I think that, if we were to get into a situation where there was no sun, if we talk about black winter or anything like that, where we're going to have dramatic reductions in sun for a prolonged period of time, how are we going to produce power? Because if solar isn't available. So solar right now seems to be the primary alternate to our commercial power. Next week, we're going to talk about all the other versions of power generation other than commercial power plants and solar. So with that, Book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. Lord, let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So remember that we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because togetherness is the key. So take care, everybody. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Are you off?
No?
I was going to start the disposal.